Oh, well, hello and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn show with me, Andrew Eborn. Delighted to be joined by Machan. We were saying how
Yeah,
glorious that name is. Machan Taylor, how are you, Machan?
I'm doing wonderfully. Getting ready for winter here in the Northeast. It's getting cold, and
Oh,
there's snow coming across the United States. So,
oh, is that right? So it's a little
yeah,
bit nippy.
yes, it is. Yeah, Chicago is going to get some serious snow, I think, today. So, yeah, so winter's coming. Yeah.
Oh, right. Winter draws on, as they used to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
Oh,
So, a 17-year-old girl from New Jersey walked away from college, stepped onto a New York stage, and accidentally became the secret weapon behind Pink Floyd's Inflatable Pig, Foreigners, gospel choirs, and every great gig in the Sky Scream you've ever heard in a stadium. She's now the woman who teaches NYU kids how to survive the music business without losing their soul, and she's never told anyone what it really costs to sing beside gods while raising a family and still chasing her own dreams. I'm delighted to welcome you to the show.
oh, thank you so much. Well, you certainly have done your research.
Oh, absolutely. So take me back then when you were a tiny girl to your childhood. They always say, show me a child to the age of 7 and I'll show you the adult, or they show you the man or the woman. Tell me about your childhood. What do you remember?
Yes, well, I was born in Japan. I was born in Yokohama. My mother was Japanese. My father was in the army, the US military. So he was in Japan during the occupancy after World War II. So my parents met there. My mother was a singer, actually, and she sang in clubs in Tokyo and also on the army base.
Right.
My father was actually the manager of the officers club, and my mother was singing in a jazz band on in the club, and that's how they met. So it's a little bit like a Hollywood story.
Have you sold that story yet?
Well, this is why we're talking because my book is about to come out. So it's all in there. So I talk about my childhood. I was born in Japan, but we left when I was about, I guess, 4.5 years old. My older sister, who was 9 years older, along with my parents, we moved to the United States, where my father was from in New Jersey, in Paterson, New Jersey, because he needed to find work. And he was not fluent in Japanese, and it was a very different time, at that point after the war. So it was difficult for him. So he got a job in New York City, and we moved to New Jersey, and the rest is history, as
I
they
know we
say.
know, but you say it was a very difficult time. It's quite appropriate because today is Remembrance Sunday, and thinking about that sort of time and relationships and society's attitude to mixed relationships, if you like, was very
Yes.
different in those days, wasn't it?
Yes, it was difficult. Given that my mother was Japanese and it was after the war, there were a lot of anti-Japanese feelings. So there was, quite a bit of discrimination my mother and my older sister and myself experienced. And yeah, it was a very different time. I grew up in a very waspy middle class neighborhood in New Jersey, and there were no other Asian looking people there, and not even any Latino people. It was a very white Catholic neighborhood that I grew up in. And in fact, I went to Catholic school. So yeah, it was a very different time. I felt, and this is a lot of what is in my book, is, it was a bit of a traumatic beginning for me, feeling like an outsider, feeling, not good enough. And that's sort of a theme that sort of ran through my life for a long time. And, I kind of grew up trying to sort of deny the fact that I was half Asian, half Japanese, and tried to to play up more of the the Anglo-Saxon side of me. And yeah, it wasn't really until much, much later in my life that I really started to embrace um, you know, the uniqueness of being mixed, you know. Um,
And I think that's so important. What I love about doing this show, we get lots of people on who sort of bare their souls and they talk about the difficulty, things which are real, because it helps other people in a similar situation, those in the public eye, such as
yeah.
yourself, talking about it. When was the first time you remember experiencing that prejudice?
Oh, it was grade school. I wore glasses when I was little. So I remember the kids calling me Four Eyes or a Jap, and kids obviously learn these things from parents or older people. So there was definitely kids being very mean to me, and to my older sister and my mother as well. So yeah, I remember it way back, in grade school.
And how did you cope?
Well, again, this is part of my story and in my book is that, I discovered um, that I could sing. And I started singing very young because my mother was a singer, my older sister was a singer. There was always music playing in the house. And in Catholic school, I started singing in the choir, and then I became a soloist. And I started singing for weddings and funerals and all kinds of events, And I was quite young, but I was pretty good. So that sort of helped me to find my identity, to find a way to stand out, to find a way to feel special.
And
And it,
it is finding that voice, isn't it? And so you
yeah.
started you were doing sold out nights in New York before you could legally drink, basically. What did your mother say to you the night that you told her you were skipping university?
Well, I had already been singing quite a bit. I started in my early teens. I taught myself how to play guitar, and I was playing Joni Mitchell songs and folk songs of the time period. And I started gigging in little coffee houses, 13, 14 years old. So I started really young. And by the time I hit 18, I had already graduated high school when I was 16 because
Right.
I knew that I wanted to get out of school and I wanted to be a professional singer. So it wasn't really a surprise to my parents that I didn't feel like I needed to go to college, because I knew what I wanted to do and I was already doing it. So luckily they agreed to let me do my thing. And the week that I turned 18, I packed up my things and I moved out. So
And it's good, and it was a wonderful career because you obviously worked with some fantastic musical artists in addition. Tell about how you first got involved with Foreigner.
oh gosh. Well, that was, I'm always have to think about what year it was because it feels like another
1985. I'll
lifetime.
help you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's like a lifetime ago at this point. I had done, um, I worked on the Jackson Victory Tour as a production assistant right before that in 1984. And that was sort of an in-between period where I had just gotten off of a tour before that, and I came back to New York, and a friend of mine was working the Jackson Victory Tour as a stage manager, production type person. And he said, "Oh, we need some help." And so I went out to Giant Stadium just outside of New York City, and I worked for a week on that tour, and then they hired me. And through that process, I just met so many people. And one of the roadies on that tour recommended me to Foreigner because they were looking for someone to be a choir director for I Want to Know What Love Is, which was a huge hit. And they had no idea how they were going to handle this for a world tour. So, I was young and dumb. I had an interview and I said, yeah, sure, I could do it. And I had no idea how I was going to do it, but luckily I figured it out and it was a great success. So,
So
yeah.
1985 it was, as they say. There was
Yes.
no internet. Every night you're going through the phone book, organizing a different gospel choir, effectively, isn't it?
Yes.
For I
Yes.
Want to Know What Love Is. So tell me about the night. Madison Square Garden, 200 strangers turned into angels, thanks to your help. Lou Gramm forgot the words because he was crying.
Well, I don't, where did you read that? Where did you hear that one? That's a good one.
Well, never let the truth stand in the way of a good story.
Exactly, exactly. No, it really was such a moving moment because, that song is anthemic. It is just, it's a feel-good, incredible song. And that night at Madison Square Garden, we filled the stage and then also behind the stage, in the seats behind the stage with yeah, over 200 singers. So it was really just a goosebump, kind of moment. Yeah, it was really spectacular.
Goosebumps and tears. We can take that.
Yeah.
So it's gonna go. So Pat Benatar, another name that features in your glorious CV. New mum, label fights, rock goddess under fire. You were the only other woman on that bus. What did she teach you about being a mother in rock that you still use every single day with your own kids?
Well, to clarify, I don't have children. Yeah, I did not have children. I could not have children. So that's a whole other story. But Patty was just amazing and it was 1986 and she was sort of at this transitional period in her career. She had a huge run of many, many hits over from the, I guess, late 70s into the early 80s, or early 80s was probably peak period for her. But this moment, this was sort of a transition with her record deal and the label and her life, becoming a mom and all of it. But she was just lovely to work with and still sounding amazing. I mean, she still sounds great. She's still out there doing it, with her husband Neil.
Yeah. I know it is
Yeah.
phenomenal. I think when I've read you, and yes, obviously not your own kids, but the kids that you work with, and so on and so forth, because
Yes.
the way that you can approach things, you learn things, how people interact with younger generations is so
Yeah.
influenced by others that they deal with, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And so, yes, in a way, I do feel like I have kids because I have so many students at New York University, and I just love them and I love working with them. And this is a career that I never imagined myself falling into. This was a much later life evolution that
Uh,
didn't dream of.
yeah, and it's all those dreams come true, if you like. You've had a fantastic career. Talk to me about the phone call that Dave Gilmour made to you saying that I need you.
Um, well, it was actually his tour manager who actually made the phone call, but then I went to the studio in Los Angeles when they were actually mixing the record Momentary Lapse of Reason with Bob Ezrin. And yeah, I met David in the lounge of the recording studio where they were working, and we had this lovely, very casual, easy conversation. And he was just so lovely, and it was so natural and such an easy interview if that's what was happening. I never had to sing for him. He just wanted to meet me. And luckily, Buford Jones, who had been the front of house mix engineer for Pat Benatar, did Pink Floyd and the Momentary Lapse of Reason tour. So he had recommended me. So whatever he said to David was just, it made it so easy for me to get the job. So it was really, I had to pinch myself at that time, like, wow, did this really happen? But it really did happen that easily. It's
And
amazing.
huge audiences, stadiums all over the place. The wonderful inflatable pig, I remember, of course.
Exactly, with the huge testicles. I know, it was very funny. Yeah, it was.
So how many times did that pig deflate mid-show?
I don't remember. I think there were a couple of moments there it may have gotten hung up. Um, I actually don't remember, but it was a very funny moment in the show, and everybody loved it.
No,
Yeah.
it's glorious. I no, but those concerts, I mean, legendary. The way you can get so many thousands of people together. How did that make you feel?
It was surreal. When I think about all those shows that I did with Floyd and the incredible places that we played, and I talk about this in my book. There are certain moments that are just burned into my memory, like standing on stage looking at the Palace of Versailles and that whole parking lot between us and the palace was filled with, over 100,000 people. And there was a full moon that night that was just, floating over the palace. And it was like a dream. It was amazing. So there were so many moments like that, I feel so incredibly blessed to have had those experiences.
And it is, I have a lot of people on the Andrew Eborn show in the public eye, and it's you go from stage where you have the adoration of, as you say, thousands of people. When you come off, how do you come down? How do you sort of make sure you get back in yourself? Because a lot of people get very depressed in
Yeah.
between the shows. How do you cope with that?
It's something a lot of people don't really talk about. At that time, listen, it was the 80s, right? So it was a crazy time. Honestly, there was a lot of drug, sex, and rock and roll. And we were young and we were kind of wild. And, there was definitely a lot of partying going on at the time. And, I think a lot of that partying really is a way for people to kind of numb out the kind of difficult feelings that you have to endure going to your hotel room by yourself at night after you've just come off this incredible high, being on stage in front of thousands and thousands of people adoring you for what you've done on stage. It's a very weird feeling, you know. And obviously, a lot of people in the entertainment business have had serious problems with substance abuse and, emotional and psychological difficulties as well. I mean, that's a reality that happens. So, in looking back, I was young, so yeah, there was a lot of partying going on, and that was the way we coped, I think. I wouldn't do that now, certainly. That's not my MO anymore. It's been a long, long, long time since I lived that kind of lifestyle. But yeah, it's something that young people need to be prepared to deal with.
Yeah, and I think it is that honesty, and that's why I think what's so powerful about these conversations is when people open up, and that's the reality. You have
Yeah.
those wonderful moments that you get the highs, but you get those incredible lows as well, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's real. And you really do have to find a way as a performing touring artist to cope with those emotions and try to keep yourself grounded, whatever it takes.
And
You
I think you're absolutely right. So what did 4 decades of singing other people's dreams cost the little girl from Yokohama that no Grammy could ever get back?
know. What did it cost me? I, you know, I don't know that it cost me anything. I think it was incredibly instructive. And it was part of my growth. It was part of my personal evolution. In writing this book, which has been a really cathartic experience for me, writing my stories down and uh, looking back and writing down the emotions that I carried and the transformation that I have gone through all these years. I feel very blessed that I had those experiences, and they taught me a lot. They taught me a lot about what I needed to work on in myself, how I needed to heal from childhood trauma and difficulties with my own identity and emotionality. And I think now where I stand now as a human, um, I'm so much better off for all those experiences. I'm very, very lucky. So I don't feel like I lost anything. I feel like I gained a
Oh,
lot.
that's it's a great way of looking at things. So
Yeah.
talk to me then. I mean, Danny Louis, when did you meet him and
Oh,
you first fall in love?
Danny and I met around 1997. I met him on a recording session for a television commercial that he was a co-writer on. So at that time, he was, writing music for television, radio, things like that and he was sort of co-partnering with someone that I knew. Um, so yeah, the first time we met, it was a commercial for 7 Up. And it unfortunately that particular commercial didn't go to air, but I definitely, and Danny and I both recall the electricity that was happening in the room between us, but it was a professional situation, so we did not act on those feelings at that time. And then I saw him a few times after that, and eventually, maybe a year later, we actually connected in a club in New York, seeing a mutual friend of ours perform, and we haven't looked back since
Oh,
then.
no,
So,
it's wonderful. So when, I mean, as you say, so you've known each other for some time. Was
yes.
that spark, wasn't there, in that connection? How did you realize that it was going to be a special relationship?
It's a good question because I hadn't had a really good track record up until that point. Um,
Why do you think that was? Why do you think you didn't have a good track record?
Well, I think all of us, we learn about life, learn about relationships from our caretakers, from our families, from examples that we learn as children. And I think for myself, I sort of relived and reenacted a lot of, uh, I made bad choices because it was based on what I knew of my parents' relationship. As I talk about in the book, my father was an alcoholic. My mother being Japanese, she was sort of the ultimate martyr, um, um, supporter subconsciously of my father's bad behaviors. And so it was sort of an unhealthy, environment to grow up in. So I definitely repeated some of those emotional dramas out in previous relationships. And I think when I met Danny, it had been after I had been through a difficult first marriage, and I had I had maybe 2 or 3 years on my own, and really trying to recover from what I had been through with my first marriage. And when I met Danny, there was something very sweet and safe feeling when I met him. He had and has a very wonderful sense of humor, and he's very smart. And he had not ever been married before, and I don't know, there was just something that told me that this guy was going to be okay.
And I think that's key, isn't it? So it's that moment in that club you suddenly realised that was the road to Damascus, was it?
Yeah, yeah, and it was, I remember that night he walked me home from the club. We walked across, I don't know if you know New York City, but we were in the West Village, and so we walked across to where my apartment was in Soho. and it started to rain a little bit, and he walked me to my apartment. He never asked to come in. He never, he just asked for my phone number. And then I went to my apartment, and then 20 minutes later he called me and he said, "Oh, I had such a wonderful time, and when can we get together again?" And it was just really lovely. And I think, the beauty of our relationship is we became friends. We became friends first.
So do you think that's the real secret then? Because it's an industry which is famous for fickle relationships or relationships that don't last as long as they should. As you say, you
Yeah,
had a few troubled ones because of your parents' own troubled relationship. Do you
yeah.
think that's the secret? Is that you're friends and you have that element of trust together?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think because we were both a little bit older, that and experienced, and you bring your experiences with you, and so there was a certain level of maturity, hopefully. Although I think we're still growing up.
Oh no, never grow up. I think that's you can enjoy those wonderful childhood things.
Yeah.
I want to take you back to 2000. You'd been on tour with Sting. How was that?
Yeah, so that was kind of a wild ride. Well, that gig, kind of manifested in a pretty magical way. And there's a chapter in my book that talks about that, which I don't need to get into. But, um, Sting had started that Brand New Day tour with three women background singers that were from London. And they were kind of like a en vogue vocal group, and really lovely and beautiful young women. And but Sting was not happy with them. So he wanted more of sort of a rock and roll vibe, I guess. And so he called Daryl Tukes, who was a singer in New York that had sung on his record Brand New Day. He was one of the session singers that he worked with. And he asked Daryl to find a female counterpart that would be willing to go on the road. And so Daryl ended up calling me, and we got the gig, and we started the gig. The first night was Y2K, the millennial New Year's Eve show out of New York City NBC studios to millions of people. That was the first gig, with no preparation except our own rehearsal and sound check. So that was a really insane ride, nerve-wracking and crazy, but we made it, we did well. Um, I don't want to give everything away because I want people to read the
Oh wait,
story.
I know this glorious little teasing.
There's a little teaser in there. So yeah, I mean, we went to Europe, we did the tour in Europe, and then and then ultimately Sting decided to make another change. So
How did that feel? I mean, it's very difficult. You get very close. You do these massive tours, and I think it's so important. How did that feel when he decided to make that change, and how did he break the news to you?
yeah, it was devastating actually. It was really shocking because it we didn't see it coming. And he didn't actually break the news to us directly. So it was a phone call, a message from Miles Copeland on Daryl's phone machine because we didn't have cell phones back then, which is so crazy to think about. But yeah, it was devastating, and it was to me not handled very well. It
So
was
you didn't get a person-to-person call. It was just a message left on a machine.
correct.
Do you still
Yeah.
have that message?
No, no, it was on Daryl's phone message machine, but I do have a little letter from Sting apologizing about how things went down, and there's a little copy of that in the book, actually.
So Sting, who never misses an episode of the Andrew Eborn Show,
Ah, hi,
what
Sting.
what would you like to say to him?
Um, I would like to say that it was fantastic working with you. I still love his music, and he's, just wonderfully talented songwriter and musician. And that didn't change my feelings, but I had expected more more compassion and um, just a more straightforward way of handling that situation, and that was disappointing. I would have appreciated a face-to-face, honest explanation, you know.
And I think it's treating people with respect, which is key. I mean, you're a
Yeah.
tiny habits coach. What's the one sentence you'd say to every burnt out artist watching who thinks they're too old to change?
Never too old, never too old to change that as long as you're alive and breathing and functioning, um, it's always it's important to have dreams no matter what, and to follow your goals and chase your dreams to the end, because this is why, to me, this is why we're here. We're alive. We're here to experience, to grow, um, and evolve as human beings, right?
Absolutely. And what's the one truth you've never told any stadium, any classroom, any husband about yourself?
Never. Oh, that's a good one. I don't know, Andrew. You're making me tell all my secrets. Uh, oh gosh, you have to read the book.
I'm trying to help you plug it, you know. It's got to
I
be.
know, I know. There's good stories in there. But I guess the one thing is never judge a book by its cover, right? And you never know what's going on for someone in their life behind the scenes. So always treat people with respect and kindness.
I think that is so key, isn't it? Okay, so
Yeah.
finally, then, three quick things, and then people can buy the book to get the other things. What's been your proudest moment?
Oh my God, in my whole life? Oh,
Yeah, apart from the
there's,
Andrew Eborn show, of course.
of course, of course. Um, I think most recently I would say that it was getting my master's degree in my 50s. Going back to school, getting my bachelor's degree, getting my master's degree, and then getting my job at university and teaching now at NYU for 11 years.
Yeah,
And I love it.
yeah.
So I,
Those are
I
the kids, as I say. Those are your kids.
those
You didn't have
those are
your.
my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your biggest regret?
Oh gosh. Um I would say one of my regrets is, when I came off the road with Pink Floyd, I immediately took a contract with a band called Hiroshima. And it was something that just came up right away. And at the time, my ex-husband, encouraged me to take it so I could stay in Los Angeles where I was living at the time with him. And because I got tied up with that contract, I wasn't able to do the gig in Venice with Floyd because they called me to come back. But I signed this 3-year contract, and then I missed out on the other tours down the road. So I would say that still kind of bugs me a little bit.
No,
But
no, no.
c'est la vie.
I don't say la vie. Indeed, it's good to look back.
Yeah.
So, finally, then, what advice, if you were to write a letter or send a WhatsApp message, if you can still receive it, to your younger self starting out in your career, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say to believe in yourself, no matter what the world is telling you, or no matter what anybody is telling you, that it's so important to believe in your talents and in yourself, and don't look back. Just look forward.
It's great advice. Looking forward. Tell us finally, then, how can people get hold of a copy of your biography? What's it called? When's it coming out? And where is it?
Yes, it's called Naked Out Loud. And actually it's registered in the UK. It's coming out in the UK first, December 3rd, and then it will be available worldwide just shortly after that. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, we're
Yes,
going to look forward to a copy, little snippets, but we will get you back on the show to talk more about it. But for now, thank you very
wonderful.
much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Great to meet you. Take care.
Take care.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Machan Taylor, and I'm happy to announce that my book will be coming out December 3rd in the UK and then worldwide shortly after that. And I'm so pleased that I just did the Andrew Eborn show, and everyone should subscribe. I recommend it. Thank you.